All right, so the first demo that we're going to, the first exercise we're going to demo is called the squat. It's a very basic movement, something that really heats your legs, hits your glutes, really just your lower body in general. So we're going to start here with our legs or our feet kind of positioned in shoulder distance. And I'm going to do this from the side just to show the actual planes of motion which we're supposed to be focusing on. But once you're ready, you kind of go down, starting with a flexion of your knee joints and a flexion of your coxal joints. And you go down, focusing on sticking your glutes out. All right, and then you come back up. You go down as reasonably far as you comfortably can. Nothing where you're down here squatting like a Slav here, like a Russian guy in a tracksuit. So you just come back up. You should be going roughly down here to a point where you're not actually sitting down. So 4, 5. Reasonably, you should hold an isometric contraction at the bottom. You're going to make it a little bit more difficult. A way to make this exercise a little bit more difficult is doing split squats at the bottom. So for example, you're just down here. This actually would be your starting position. And your split squats would look like this. And you should be going relatively slowly. And a way to make that easier is to do split squats at the top, or something I like to call LeBron squats. So these are just your split squats. Boom, boom, at the top, and sometimes you can even do half squats. So half, half, half. And you gotta make sure that you're doing these slow and controlled manner. So when you're going down, it should be about 3 seconds, because that's technically the lengthening, while going up to the top is the shortening. So you should be whoosh, and then slow, whoosh, boom. All right, the second one we're going to do is a split squat, which is technically just taking that squat and just making it for a single leg. So you're going to start off right here. You could do this. You could do split squats like Romanian split squats, which is having your leg just up on a bench, but we don't have a bench here, not particularly. We're just going to be doing these floor split squats. So what that consists of is you just splitting, keeping your back straight up, because you want to keep your weight even for the most part. And it's like a lunge, except you're not stepping into it this time. You're actually already in that position. So from here, still, your legs are slightly shoulder width, as you can see right here, just slightly shoulder width. And then it's the same essential movement, a bend or a flexion of the knee joint, and your coxal joint is also bent, but it's only going to be in one knee, while this one actually remains flexed, or remains extended for the most part. So and this really works single glutes. I always suggest doing these kind of after doing some squats to increase some confusion in your muscles, add a different kind of tension to it. And a way to make this a little bit more difficult is to basically do the same as I instructed with making squats more difficult, which is doing kind of quarter squats at the bottom. You can see I don't go up all the way with quarter squats at the bottom. And a way to make that easier, if you're kind of go through a set and you basically went to failure, but you need to go past failure if you're a hard gainer, is to do quarter squats at the top. But you gotta make sure you do those slow, because they're easy, but you still want to make them a little bit more difficult to some degree. You need to apply some tension to it. And make sure you do those slow. Alright, so next exercise that we're gonna demo is the Romanian deadlift. Now this is a version of the deadlift where there's not such a focus on the extension of your knee joints when you perform this. The positioning is very much similar to regular deadlifting. But in this case, the position of these mostly stay the same, and therefore your exercise is actually focusing on this hip hinge of your back, of your lumbar aponeurosis and your lower back muscles. So essentially it really engages your core rather than also getting your legs and glutes as well. So we start kind of here, keeping only a very slight flexion of your elbows. And then once you grab the bell, breathe in a couple times, build up some oxygen to fight back the buildup of hydrogen ions, at least for a couple more reps. And then you bring this up, mostly just focusing on the extension of your back, your lumbar spine. You see how my knee joints, they don't move. At least not so much. There might be some movement, but you're not supposed to. And that's what characterizes a Romanian deadlift, is that this is just a weird version of a deadlift. Now, deadlifts usually are something in which we don't have much of a range of motion with that we can change beyond the time under tension that we can have. So there's not really much we can do to change the range of motion with this. It would actually be kind of dangerous to. But the time under tension is how we modify to make things harder. So for example, you have an explosive flexion or explosive extension, but then you have to kind of let it go back down. And in this case, I would probably also say kind of hold it somewhere right around here for like 1 second and then drop it. Explosive come up and slow regression. Now, a way you can make it easier to regress would then be to take that barbell and just and then completely let it go, or let your lower back just relax when you do that. So after coming up, you just let that go down, so there isn't that flexion of the hip, at least not one that's weighted. You're not actually putting resistance to it. So last exercise we're going to demo here is the floor glute bridge. So essentially, floor glute bridges, what do glutes do? They extend the hip joint. All right. So especially for applying gravity directly to the opposite side of the glutes are going to have to work much harder. So this is a type of lower body exercise that really requires you to engage your core and squeeze your glutes, because you're supposed to be a bridge. So in this case, the floor glute bridge, think of starting off kind of in this position. You may even want to be a little bit more extended to kind of make it more difficult. But the actual motion is this this pelvic thrust upwards. All right, and you go back down, boom, boom. You might even want to do it a little wider too if you want. Ways to make this more difficult, you could add weight to it, but that's very basic. When we're trying to add difficulty to it, it really should be how you change the range of motion, or this creates confusion in the muscle and provides a different tension. So in this case, we're going to focus highly on the isometric of this exercise. So, and we just hold this right here, like a bridge. You're held together. You just hold that right there, Squeezing your glutes as much as you can because that's where most of the tension is being applied. And then a slow come down. All right, extend. Isometric, hold. Extend, isometric hold. And then we can also make this more difficult with single legs. Because now most of your body weight is now being applied to one of your glute muscles. In this case, my left. And then similarly, we can do the same on the other side. And the way to make this easier is to simply just not do as much of a range of motion or kind of go fast with them, almost like it's a ballistic exercise in some weird sense. So, for example here, all right, and we can even change the range of motion. We probably won't even have to come up as much. In this case, this will make it easier, but there still is some tension on the glute muscles. So, I believe that was over 10 reps. So, thank you very much for watching, and see ya.